Chapter 5, Data Collection. Data collection enables teachers to measure their students' progress towards goal achievement. The next step following implementation on the decision process wheel is progress monitoring. In this next segment of the module, we discuss the importance of using data and why it is important to have a system to collect and to use it. First, the definition. Progress monitoring is a type of formative assessment that teachers use to determine whether their instruction is moving the student forward. Regular probes of skills outlined in goals on the IEP provide data points. Graphing the data points give teachers a visual picture of whether the student is on track to meet their goal or if instruction needs to be changed to have a better result. Teachers need to set up a system to collect the data, individualized for each student, that is easy to collect and analyze by all staff working with the student. Once teachers are collecting data regularly, they need to analyze student performance and use it to make decisions that drive their instruction. Desiree keeps the student's setting in mind when designing systems to track data. Listen to how she tracks behavioral data in general ed classrooms.
When I'm writing an IEP and determining what progress monitoring method I'm going to use, I typically look at what classroom instruction is going to look like for that specific student, and I attempt to use those as progress monitoring tools so that I can progress monitor sometimes without the student even realizing that they're being monitored. Sometimes pulling them out for additional testing can create additional stress that is not needed. And I send a behavior tracking sheet out to teachers daily. Some students like having the paper copy in hand where they can see what they're doing, but I get daily feedback from teachers and PSRs doing that.
It's important to follow the schedule or how often the IEP states data will be collected. In addition, the data needs to be collected in the same manner each time. For example, if using a set of flashcards to monitor Simone's progress on her goal for reading multisyllabic words, then the same set of cards should be used each time. If the data isn't collected the same way, it can skew the results. Progress monitoring data allows us to compare where the student is performing to the goal criteria and allows staff to identify patterns of progress or lack of progress. The data should also be used to make instructional decisions based on the student's progress or lack of progress, which then leads to increased student achievement. This flowchart is one option for making decisions using progress monitoring data. Start by asking, does the data indicate that the student is making adequate progress to meet the goal? If yes, great, no changes are needed. If no, it should be considered if the instruction is being implemented with fidelity. In other words, are all the components of the strategy being presented? Is the instruction occurring for the correct amount of time? If not, then the evidence-based practice should be reviewed and changes made to ensure that it is occurring with fidelity. If the instruction is occurring with fidelity, then consider whether or not the strategy or instruction is appropriate for the targeted skill. If not, then a different evidence-based practice should be identified. What Works Clearinghouse could be used, as in our earlier example. If yes, then the team may need to consider if the goal is appropriate, and if the team determines the goal isn't appropriate for the student, then an amendment would need to be made to adjust or change the goal. So after you're collecting data, how can you tell when it's time to move forward? Let's hear what Desiree thinks about when it's time to move forward with her students after she analyzes their data.
When you are collecting progress monitoring data and determining whether a student has made adequate growth or not, it's really simple when you are using a standardized assessment like Ames Web or STAR. They kind of help you determine if a student is making adequate growth or not, and they give you the projected scores that students should be receiving by certain dates. It gets a little tricky when you are considering if adequate or not adequate growth has been made. When you're using teacher created rubrics or work samples, typically it has to be very individualized, and that has to be considered when you're writing your IEP. So trying to make those determinations during instruction is a little bit more difficult. When you're writing your IEP, it's easier to set up those objectives and where you would like them to be at certain points throughout the year ahead of time.
For more information on this topic, SESTA has created a series of modules on data-driven decision-making. These modules provide more in-depth information on progress monitoring, data collection, and writing data-driven IEP goals. They are located on the Idaho Training Clearinghouse at idahotc.com. Under Resources, type Data-Driven in the search box, and then View on the right-hand side to get to the screen shown here.